the journey towards fighter self-reliance. A new dawn for 100% Desi combat aircraft. India today reveals Mission 470. It's called Mission 470 informally, and we've got a big news break on something that's going to be an absolute milestone, a game changer as far as Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense is concerned. Remember, since independence, viewer, India and India's Air Force have been completely dependent, mostly for understandable reasons, on foreign combat aircraft. All of that is about to change just 12 months from now, and I'm going to show you some hard facts that will change your mind about it. I'm Shiv, this is 5 Live. Big special broadcast coming up. The headlines first. Chilling replay of Shraddha murder. Girlfriend killed, body stored in fridge of a dhaba. Man weds another woman on the day of the murder. India Today accesses CCTV video. We've got a special report coming up at 6 p.m. Army personnel beaten to death by DMK councillor and 9 aides. DMK Neta Chinnaswamy on the run. His son has been arrested. Day 2 of searches at BBC offices by Income Tax Department. Sources say searches may be on for 3 days. BBC asks employees to cooperate with the probe. War over revered Shiva shrine. Assam government advertisement claims the 6th Jyotirlinga in Kamrup in Assam. Udhav Sena claims the 6th Jyotirling is in Pune. Says first projects, now gods taken away. Death toll from Turkey and Syria. Earthquakes cross over 40,000 more people found alive as rescue efforts continue for over 200 hours and counting. This truly is all about Atmanirbharta. In just 12 months from now, viewer, something is going to happen. Something is going to change that takes the current game of India's overt, overwhelming dependence on foreign weapons and foreign combat aircraft and turn it completely on its head. Watch this exclusive report by India Today's Akshay Dongre. It's an informal mission called Mission 470. And it's something that's going to turn India from a country that has always imported weapons and systems for its air force to one that makes its own and sells them abroad. Watch this exclusive report. This is Mission 470. Ripping up the skies over India's aerospace capital, fighters from India and the world in a deadly aerial dance. But amidst all the sound and fury that only a jet engine can exude, there's a thundering new dawn rising for the Indian Air Force. One that seeks to take decades of legacy dependence on outside fighter tech and replace it with India's own. India Today has learned that this ambitious drive is being informally called Mission 470. And the reason for that, in case you hadn't guessed, is that starting February next year, the Indian Air Force will begin receiving the first of 470 fighters designed and built right here in India. Let's take you step by step through this big plan. Things will kick off in February 2024 with the delivery of the first of 83 LCA Tejas Mark 1A fighters, a hugely improved version of the current Tejas in service. Meanwhile, the Indian Air Force will also begin to order 108 LCA Mark II jets, aircraft that are derived from the original Tejas but enormously more capable, with better performance, stronger engines and far superior capabilities. You're familiar with the LCA Tejas, but this is the Mark II and it's actually a vastly different aircraft. It's actually a bigger aircraft. This scale model tells you a little bit about how that final look is going to be. Some big differences. It's a heavier, longer aircraft. As you can see, it has these canard foreplanes here for greater maneuverability. It actually increases the agility of this fighter. If you look at the weapon systems on board the LCA Mark II, it can actually carry a much larger range and more weapons than the LCA can. Very, very importantly, if you come to the back, you can't really see it here in the model, but the engine that goes on the LCA Mark II is going to be a much more powerful engine on the existing LCA Tejas of the Indian Air Force. While this happens over a decade, India's most advanced fighter in development, the 5th generation stealthy AMCA, will come online and begin deliveries of at least 126 units to the Indian Air Force. On a parallel track, the Indian Navy will also begin receiving 100 twin-engine deck-based fighters, or TED-BF, for its aircraft carriers, fully purpose-built naval jets to meet the Indian Navy's future requirements. Well into the next decade, that translates into 470 Indian-designed, Indian-built fighters for the Indian Air Force and Indian Navy. With Defence Minister Rajnath Singh declaring that 3/4 of India's present and future weapon modernization budgets will be reserved for Indian industry, the future looks bright. But nothing is ever as simple as it looks. As India sets down a path towards Atmanirbhar fighters, can it remain steadfastly on track? Bureau Report, India Today. Indian Air Force Chief Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary spoke to India Today's Manjeet Negi, where he detailed Mission 470. Take a look at this.
फ्यूचर जो हमारे एयरक्राफ्ट हैं, हेलीकॉप्टर, उस पर क्या किस तरह का जोर वायुसेना का रहेगा?
जोर तो रहेगा हमारे 5th जनरेशन और 6th जनरेशन टेक्नोलॉजीज़ पे, ताकि चाहे आमका हो या चाहे मॉडर्न जनरेशन कोई भी मैन अनमैन टीमिंग जहाज होगा, तो उसमें जो टेक्नोलॉजीज़ शामिल होंगे, हम यही चाहते हैं कि ये 5th to 6th जनरेशन टेक्नोलॉजीज़ उसमें शामिल हों।
और अगर हम एलसीए की बात करें तो आपको लगता है कि एलसीए हमारे जो मिग सीरीज के जहाज हैं उसको रिप्लेस करने की दिशा में तेजी से उस पर काम हो रहा है?
बिल्कुल हो रहा है। जैसे ही ये 83 एलसीए मार्क 1A का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जो फुलफिलमेंट शुरू होगा अगले साल से, तब हमें उम्मीद है कि आने वाले सालों में 3 या 4 स्क्वाड्रन्स एलसीए के आएंगे और उसी दौरान मिग 21 फेज आउट हो जाएंगे, तो 1-to-1 रिप्लेसमेंट हो जाएगा।
प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा कि भारत अब रक्षा के क्षेत्र में, हथियार के क्षेत्र में एक बड़ी ताकत के तौर पर उभर रहा है। इस वक्त जो देश और दुनिया के हालात हैं, हम देख रहे हैं रूस यूक्रेन युद्ध, किस तरह से आप देख रहे हैं? क्या हमारे जो वेपन हैं स्वदेशी, उनसे हम भविष्य की लड़ाई लड़ने की दिशा में कैसे आगे बढ़ेंगे?
इसमें कोई शक नहीं है कि आने वाले सालों में हमें कम्प्लीटली आत्मनिर्भर रहना पड़ेगा, हथियारों में और एयरक्राफ्ट में भी। तो इसको मद्देनजर रखते हुए जिस दिशा में हम चल रहे हैं बिल्कुल सही चल रहे हैं, और हमें उम्मीद है कि आने वाले दशक में लगभग 70% हमारे हथियार मेड इन इंडिया रहेंगे।
So let's just decode for you what this Mission 470 is actually going to look like. Step number 1, 133 light combat aircraft Tejas Mark 1A aircraft, out of which 83 have already been ordered. 50 will be part of a follow-on order in the years ahead. Step number 2, 108 LCA Tejas Mark II aircraft, which are currently in development. The first aircraft is going to roll out in just a couple of years from now. So 108 of those. Step number 3, India's most ambitious aircraft, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, which is a stealth 5th generation fighter. 126 of those are going to be ordered. In a parallel track, 100 naval twin-engine deck-based fighters will also be ordered for the Indian Navy's aircraft carrier, and that brings it to a total of 470 fighters at a minimum that will be contracted over the next decade or so. All of them designed, developed, tested and built right here in India. Now I want to tell you why Mission 470 is so big. You're wondering, okay, India's building fighters, 470 of them will be ordered, but what's the big deal? Why do I need to care about this? Why is this so massive? I'll tell you. Number one, the Indian Air Force's current fighter fleet is overwhelmingly composed of imported jets, from Mirages to Rafales to Su-30s, etc. So there are very few Indian jets in the Indian Air Force. Of the 31 fighter aircraft squadrons, viewer, would you believe it that only 2 squadrons have Indian-built fighters, Indian-made fighters? Number 3, this Mission 470 will solve the Indian Air Force's chronic nightmare over imported parts and imported spares. Every time something goes wrong with aircraft, many a times they've got to look outside to get things fixed. Number 4, an Indian Air Force fighter fleet for India, 100% made by India, gives us a great deal of autonomy over the fleet. Remember, several countries are also interested in Indian fighters, so this gives us a leg up in that direction. And finally, India becomes a low-cost manufacturer of advanced aircraft, advanced jets. Just like in many other domains, India could be a place where many other countries want to manufacture their jets because we create an industrial ecosystem that is much more cost economic than any other place. And finally, it will create lakhs of unskilled, skilled and super skilled jobs right here in India, from the making of the aircraft to the software and systems, to the mission computers. These are jobs and employment across the board and will be there for a very, very long time. Now, the LCA Tejas is going to be the cornerstone of Mission 470 because it is with this aircraft that things are going to begin. I just want to enjoy the sound that this aircraft's been making as it captures the eyeballs at Aero India. Listen into the beautiful Tejas.
Designed to showcase the might of the powerful GE 404 engine. Ladies and gentlemen, they're just rolling and piercing into the blue skies of Bengaluru.
So next February, the first of 83 improved versions of the Tejas will be delivered to kick off Mission 470. But like I told you, India's fighter fleet is overwhelmingly composed of foreign fighters that we've either bought directly from the outside or just license built here in India with no real technical benefit to Indian industry and Indian designers. Take a look at our fleet and you can see what I mean when I say it's overwhelmingly foreign. MiG-21s are from Russia. We still have them. MiG-29 fighters are also from Russia. The amazing Mirage 2000s are of French origin. These are the aircraft that were used in the Balakot airstrikes and in Kargil. Rafales are our newest fighters. They are the big brothers of the Mirage 2000s. These are also from France. The venerable Su-30 MKI, India has the largest fleet of these aircraft. They are also from Russia. HAL builds them under license in Nashik. Jaguars are Anglo-French. They're from England and France. And finally, the Tejas, the venerable Tejas, which is a new feisty little fighter, belongs very much to India, even though it operates on an American engine. It is a fully otherwise an Indian fighter. Now, it may seem like I'm painting a very rosy picture of all of this, the dawn of new fighters, an incredible decade for Atmanirbharta, but we've got to be realistic because this is a complicated issue. So I want to ask the big questions here as well on India today. Number one, what if Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which will be the company building these aircraft, what if HAL and DRDO do not deliver on time? If they don't deliver on time, it makes plans go haywire for the Indian Air Force, and the Indian Air Force may be forced to import aircraft in the interim. Number two, what if HAL and DRDO do not meet the Indian Air Force's capability requirements with these aircraft? Then again, the Indian Air Force might have an excuse to look outside the country. Will the Indian Air Force, on the other hand, put its money where its mouth is for these indigenous Desi jets? Will it use the same energy for Indian aircraft as it has over the years compelled to on foreign fighters? Number four, will extra energy be spent to support Indian jets? Surely they deserve a little extra dum, a little extra push and momentum since they have so many benefits having been built here in India. Can Indian jet programs be derailed by vested interests and by foreign firms? Because foreign firms stand to lose contracts if Indian jets become mature and win the contract. So could there be some shadow play that makes things go off track for Indian jet programs? And finally, can the Indian government, in this case the Modi government, ensure the end of Babugiri and ensure that all these companies, DRDO and BEL and all these companies, stick to their deadlines so the Indian Air Force does not need to suffer? These are hard questions to be asked, but this is an ambitious drive where the benefits will be absolutely enormous. I want to go across to our National Bureau Chief Abhishek Bhalla, who's been a defense correspondent for many, many years as well. Abhishek, Mission 470, very, very promising. 12 months from now is when the first LCA Tejas Mark 1A, which the Air Force is looking forward to, will be delivered. And thereafter, the ball will be set rolling for what is hoped to be something that truly creates an industrial base for completely Indian military aviation.
Shiv, if you ask me, the big thrust on self-reliance and Atmanirbharta that this government is following, but the biggest litmus test is perhaps manufacturing of fighter jets. This is that threshold, probably the final frontier that needs to be conquered. We are on the right path, but deadlines is something which is extremely crucial. And I'll tell you why, because the depleting strength of the Indian Air Force is something which is extremely concerning. We're down to 30 squadrons against the sanctioned 42. Each squadron has 18 fighter aircraft. So you can well imagine, in terms of numbers, the Indian Air Force is lagging behind. Now, the 470 that we are talking about in the next decade or so, these are in addition to the 114 that Indian Air Force already requires. For these 114, the players are foreign manufacturers. So clearly, the Indian Air Force is looking at a blend of foreign jets as well as indigenous made in India jets. And once that blend is prepared, that's when the Indian Air Force will truly be modernized. The thrust is on 5th and 6th generation technology, as the Air Force Chief told Manjeet Negi. And out of these 470, 370 are for the Indian Air Force and 100 for the Navy. Now remember, Shiv, even the LCA for the Navy has shown a lot of concerns. So a lot of catching up needs to be done there as well. All in all, very promising, as you said, but deadlines is a major factor.
Absolutely. Cost and time overruns will be unacceptable because these are complicated programs, and India has had a long time to prove itself capable of developing, a competent fighter aircraft. It has done so with the Tejas, and that's the reason why the Indian Air Force will have a much smaller threshold and margin for tolerance for delays and cost overruns. So Abhishek Bhalla is absolutely right when he says now is the litmus test. The HAL and DRDO have had all that experience. Mission 470 needs to fire on all cylinders from the get-go. There will be very little very little margin for error that the Indian Air Force will allow. Abhishek, stay with me. Because India Today's defense correspondent Akshay Dongre, who happens to be at the Aero India show right now, caught up with the man actually overseeing the development of many of these fighter aircraft, from the LCA Mark II to the 5th generation stealth fighter AMCA to the TED-BF for the Indian Navy's aircraft carriers. His name is Girish Deodare. He's the Director General of the Aeronautical Development Agency, or ADA, in Bengaluru. Watch this conversation. It's an exclusive.
We have AMCA in development. Where are we at the development phase, and by what time can we expect a prototype production of AMCA?
So AMCA has been in development for quite some time. In fact, the design started in 2009, and there were a lot of challenges in AMCA because you cannot ask a foreign country for these technologies. They are never shared. So as was mentioned by DG NSM, the materials, the stealth materials for AMCA have now been developed. We are sure what material will be used in what part, and all those are qualified. So that's a very important achievement. So the aircraft design is also complete now. How we are going to get the stealth and how the design is, how we are fitting all the parts together. So we have reached that stage where we are at the critical design review, but the design is now complete, 100%. See, what happens in the 5th generation aircraft is the emphasis is more on stealth than aerodynamics. However, a naval aircraft has to come and land on the carrier, where aerodynamics becomes critical. So we weighed the two, and we are going for a 5-. So it's not a 4th generation aircraft at Wave, it's a 5-. So other than the stealth shaping, which spoils the aerodynamics to a large extent, it is effectively having all the 5th generation technologies. Tejas Mark II we are expecting very fast. In about 5 years, we should start the production. And that we are confident because the path is clear.
So very heartening word there from the man literally controlling the timelines on these fighter developments to make Mission 470 a success. Akshay, who just had that conversation with Girish Deodare, is with me live from the Aero India show in Bengaluru. Akshay, Mission 470 is by far India's most ambitious Atmanirbhar push in the space of combat aircraft. You've been speaking to the very people who will be pulling the strings and making it a success. What's the sense that you're getting?
Mission 470 is going to bring new dawn for the Indian Air Force, as the Indian Air Force is expecting new fighter aircrafts to help with the falling number of the squadron strength. According to the Indian Air Force officials, the sanctioned squadron strength is, as we know, 42 squadrons. However, we are right now at 31, and to help replenish the falling squadron strength, there is going to be 470 aircraft that will be inducted into the Indian Air Force. As far as the deliveries are concerned, it will start from February next year, and the first aircraft in line will be Tejas Mark 1A, which is going to be a highly sophisticated aircraft built on the original platform of Tejas. However, it is going to be much more superior, much more faster and stronger than the original Tejas. The second aircraft is going to be Tejas Mark 2, and according to the Aeronautical Development Agency, the production of Tejas Mark 2 will start around in 5 years, and the number of Tejas Mark 2 that we are expecting in our inventory is 108 aircrafts. Besides the 83 Tejas Mark 1A and Tejas Mark 2, there is going to be the ambitious plan of the Indian Air Force becoming reality with AMCA being developed by the Aeronautical Development Agency. Now, according to the ADA, the first prototype of AMCA is expected to roll out in 4 years, and after permission, the production can in fact begin in the next 10 years, which is going to bring a huge fighting technology for the Indian Air Force, as the AMCA is a 5th generation stealth aircraft, and it is going to have all the cutting-edge technologies that the world's leading powers have. The fourth aircraft that will also come to the inventory of the Indian Armed Forces is going to be TED-BF, which is going to be a carrier-based fighter, and that is also going to be a very superior aircraft, though according to ADA, while the airframe is not supportive of stealth capabilities, but the materials, the composites that will be used in TED-BF will be similar to that of AMCA.
Absolutely.
Which means that the TED-BF, while it will not be completely stealth, but most of the materials used in the aircraft will be stealthy, and that means that TED-BF will almost be a 5th generation carrier-based aircraft for our forces. So 470 aircraft being inducted into the Indian Air Force is going to significantly boost our fighting edge over several other countries, as well as it will strengthen the defense of our country as well as the strength of the Indian Air Force.
I want to bring Abhishek Bhalla back in on this, because, you know, Abhishek, the Indian Air Force has, constantly been accused over many years of, preferring to import aircraft, not really showing enough support for indigenous indigenous platforms like the Tejas, even though the Tejas is now in service. It looks like in the last few years that has changed quite visibly, Abhishek. Now the Indian Air Force is fully ready. Fully ready to support an Indian system, because they see the benefits, they see the technology maturing, and they know that they will not get the best from abroad.
Very big question, Shiv. Will the Indian Air Force, not just the Air Force, but will the armed forces continue to sort of reinforce their belief in Indian-made systems? This is something that was not happening earlier. Every time an Indian platform was on offer, the Indian forces, for some reason or the other, either found faults with it or sort of said that a foreign system is better, and this was happening even with the fighter aircraft, and that's the reason why there was a big thrust on first LCA Tejas and now on Mark 1A, Mark 2, later AMCA. It seems that the Indian Air Force has in fact realized that at some point of time they'll be better off if they use Indian jets. And in fact, the previous Indian Air Force chief, Air Chief Marshal Bhadoria, had said once, Shiv, that if we want to export our defense material, then we need to start using them ourselves. So unless you use it, you will not be in a position to sell it to others.
Thanks very much, Abhishek, for putting that into perspective for us. Very, very exciting to report all of these developments. Mission 470, which was reported in the Tribune also earlier today, is something that the country needs to be very, very proud of, because this is a thrust by the government that basically says, look, we know that things have gone wrong in the past, but now we're willing to put in the hours, put in the money, put in the hard work of supporting indigenous platforms so that we can really achieve self-reliance in the military. India can forget about being a superpower if it continues to be dependent on outside economies for its military and security needs. Now, while we've been talking about indigenous aircraft and the Tejas and the AMCA and Mission 470, the United States Air Force has added 2 more aircraft to its fleet at the Aero India 2023. 2 supersonic B-1B Lancer bombers, these beauties you see in these pictures, flew into the Aero India show in Bengaluru yesterday, and they've been flexing their muscle today as well, leaving a lot of people wondering, what are these strategic bombers doing here in India? Take a look. A truly scintillating display of one of the world's most beloved and iconic aircraft. The crowds in Bengaluru were in ecstasy as these 2 American B-1B Lancer supersonic heavy bombers roared into the Aero India show. Lovingly called the Bone, these strategic jets first flew nearly half a century ago and remain part of the formidable and far-reaching US bomber fleet. Once a platform for nuclear delivery, the super sleek jets now wield conventional weaponry of every kind, including air-launched cruise missiles. But why are B-1B Lancers flexing muscle in India, you're wondering? Before you wonder if India is thinking of getting its own bombers, the answer is no. India has no such plans. But the jets buzzing Bengaluru are most definitely an act of strategic messaging to the region, most definitely to China as well. As India and the United States forge closer military ties and bilateral relations, the US is making it clear that it stands with India to keep the peace in this hemisphere. American messaging is seldom subtle, and with a pair of bones in the air, this is pretty typical of how the US Air Force does things. The US bombers flew into India in the wake of a pair of F-35 Lightning II fighters that have already captured massive eyeballs and mind space at the ongoing Aero India show. As India Today has reported, these jets too are here not for a sales pitch, but as a reminder to India and the world that the US controls the best weapons technology on Earth. 2 iconic jets, one a late Cold War era beast that's still bristling with bombs, the other a stealthy little jet that has set the standard for future fighters and combat, signaling, "Thy name is America." Bureau Report, India Today. And let's just show you what else has been ripping up the sky over the Aero India show 2023 over Bengaluru. Like we just showed you, the United States Air Force and its new 5th generation stealth fighter jets, F-35s, have been demonstrating their prowess at the 5-day Aero India exhibition. These supersonic multi-role Lightning IIs have flown in. They're part of a demonstration team, and they've been the cynosure of all eyes, capturing so many eyeballs. People have come from far and wide just to see them. It's their debut here in India. Like we just showed you, the United States Air Force has been here in strength. Another American fighter made by the same company, the F-16, the legendary F-16, is also at Air India. Here it is, full afterburners on, taking off from the Yelahanka Air Base. The F-16's upgraded version, the F-21, happens to be in the race for an Indian Air Force order of 114 fighter jets. There are also lots of vintage aircraft in the air over Aero India. This is, of course, a Dakota aircraft that's on air display at the air show. This Dakota aircraft played a key role in India's Pakistan War of 1971 and is known by its Indian name Parshuram. This particular Dakota was refurbished at the expense of Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar, and he made it a personal gift to the Indian Air Force back in 2018. And these are beautiful images taken by India's latest drone product. It's called Tapas. It's a long-endurance drone that will soon be in Indian military service. Well, this drone flying at 15,000 feet captured these mesmerizing images of the Aero India inaugural flypast. And aviation analysts around the world have been praising the image quality recorded by Tapas. This is India's very own surveillance drone. And who doesn't love aircraft formation flight? A Trishul formation featuring Sukhoi 30 MKI fighters drew collective gasps from onlookers at the Yelahanka Air Base in Bengaluru. They've been flying on a daily basis at the show, so if you're there, this is the sight you'll see for real.
Lord Shiva, the destroyer. Lo and behold, you now have a Trishul in the sky.
You've heard from the Indian Air Force Chief Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary. Now listen to the Deputy Chief, one of his key officers tasked with the difficult work of planning and acquiring fighter aircraft. This is the man who has tested the Tejas. He, in fact, was the pilot who flew with me. In fact, flew me in a Tejas in 2019 in Bengaluru. Here's the man speaking about his passion and the future of the Indian Air Force.
Moving away, let us remind you of the decades of effort.
Asia's largest air show has started at Bengaluru at Yelahanka Air Base, and today is the second day of Aero India 2023. And to talk about the specific features of the induction plans of the Indian Air Force, we have Deputy Chief to the Air Staff, Air Marshal N. Tiwari. Sir, thank you so much for speaking with us. Talking about the strength of the Air Force, we have Tejas here standing right beside us. What exactly are the features of this aircraft that makes it very, very important for the future operational capabilities of the...
Okay, as you see, this Tejas aircraft which is standing, first of all, it's one of the smallest fighters. So small fighters bring its own challenges because it may be small in size, but it is not small in capability. For its size, it carries more than 3.5 tons of weapons. It has the latest avionics in glass cockpit. It has air-to-air refueling, which you can see. It also has a capability of carefree handling and a fly-by-wire controls. And these are criticals for ensuring that the aircraft does not go out of control in combat, and the pilot is confident of maneuvering to the extreme limits of the aircraft. So all this brings us tremendous capability, and these are all indigenous capabilities. So we are looking at what we have learned on this aircraft and moving to the LCA Mark II and the AMCA, and these are the foundations on which the next programs will develop.
Sir, MMRCA deal, we have been talking about the MMRCA for the past 10 years. Where are we at it, and what are the front runners?
Okay, so on the MMRCA, now we call it the MRFA, MR114 MRFA. We are almost on the final stages of moving forward with, as you understand, it is a budgetary decision because it's a large amount of money, as well as it's going to be a decision to be taken for the future, keeping a lot of things into account, especially in terms of how much Make in India can happen, what capability it will bring to the Air Force, and how fast we can get induction to happen. So while in my estimate, in 3 to 4 months, we should be ready to move forward with our final proposal.
What are the key things that we're looking at for any project, any fighter aircraft? What are those key specifications of that aircraft?
So key specifications, of course, it has to be future generation ready. We are looking at, good offensive systems, good weapon integration. We are also looking at self-protection. And also the fact that important thing is how much of Make in India can happen. Localization of indigenous content, and also the capability for us to upgrade that aircraft on our own rather than keep depending on foreign OEMs. So those are the areas we are looking at, how to maximize that. Once we are ready for that, we should be able to move, and we will have some decision very soon.
And last question, sir. The squadron strength, that is the most important point that's being raised. So how are we planning?
So as of now, I think what is known is that we are buying 83 more LCAs. The AMCA and the LCA Mark II are two other programs, and the MRFA. So all this is going to actually, add up and definitely help in, arresting the drawdown which is seeing happening. So hopefully in 4 to 5 years down the line, we should be in a better position.
And on India Today, you will always see the latest and finest military journalism. That's a promise that comes straight from me to you, the viewer. That's a wrap on this particular segment. But coming up on the second half of 5 Live, you're going to meet someone really incredible, viewer. She's a hero doctor in Bengaluru who went down in a cage deep into a well to rescue a trapped leopard. I'm going to show you what happened, and she joins me live on the show.
Over 3 decades, Business Today has delivered news, views and analysis like no other, chronicling India Inc.'s journey through time. Now, at 31 years, Business Today presents the future. Mission 2047, Road to India at 100. With Indian industry's biggest stalwarts and an exclusive interview with Google CEO Sundar Pichai. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Those of you who know me know all about my deep love for animals, and nothing gives me more joy than seeing a fellow citizen going all out to rescue one. My next story will highlight the stunning rescue undertaken by a veterinarian near Bengaluru in Karnataka. Dr. Meghna Pemaya, that's the lady you see inside that cage. She led a 2-hour daredevil mission to rescue a terrified trapped leopard that had been stuck in a 25-foot deep well, as you can see in these images. Armed with a gun, darts and other equipment, Dr. Meghna sat inside that cage that was lowered into the well. She then carefully sedated the leopard that was stuck for nearly 36 hours, pulled the animal into the same cage as she was sitting in and brought it up carefully to safety. The dramatic 2-hour rescue operation took place near a house in Nidodi of Katil, about 35 kilometers from the city of Bengaluru. These are images that have gone viral in the media, not just here in India, but all across the world, with Dr. Meghna being applauded for her bravery, for her courage and her empathy for the terrified trapped beast that had been in there for over 36 hours. And it's my honor and privilege to tell you that Dr. Meghna Pemaya joins me live from Bengaluru this afternoon. Dr. Meghna, so nice to see you here on India Today. I know you know that those images of your rescue of that beautiful creature are being appreciated and admired everywhere. I personally, salute you for the work that you've done. It's one leopard, but it's one life saved. I want you to tell us about how it all worked out. When did you hear about this leopard? How did you think about doing this whole thing, and how did it happen?
First of all, thank you so much for that. I mean, it means a lot to me and my team that we are appreciated so much for the work that we've done. So actually, we got a call from the Bidri Forest Department on Sunday around 9:30 a.m. And Dr. Yashasvi Naravi, actually, he's been in this field of rescuing wildlife around Mangalore for the past 6 to 7 years. So he assembled our team, and we head to the spot. And once we went there, we already realized that the forest department had already done, already gotten all the gun, the darting equipment, everything ready. The cages were ready, and they'd also done quite a bit of crowd control. So they had made it quite easy for us. So once we reached the spot, all that we had to do was assess the situation, what could be done, planned everything. So when we looked down into the well, all we could see was like an empty well, nothing other than, the mud at the bottom of the well. So then we were like, we weren't even sure, how big the leopard was, or, if it is injured. We had no idea about it. So then we decided the only other option for us to get the animal out safely would be, if one of us went into that cage and then, darted the animal. So we were 4 vets actually, Dr. Prithvi, Dr. Nafiza, Dr. Yashasvi Naravi and me. So it was just a thing that, all of us were ready to go into that cage. But I volunteered to get in first. So it was like an okay thing. The whole time, it was, that little fear was there. But at that point, I was only thinking about, just going down, finishing the rescue operation as smoothly as possible and get the leopard back to safety.
Yeah.
So, and the locals in the forest department were extremely supportive. So once we decided this was the plan, took quite a few test shots with the gun to check if everything was working fine. Then took all the medicines, and then I went into the cage. Then the locals and the forest department very carefully put me, down to the
I wanted to ask you, Dr. Meghna, how did it feel to be inside that cage? I'm very curious to know how you felt being inside that cage.
Like I said, initially that little bit of fear was there. So many things running in my head. Like, there are so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
In this operation, like, the cage, if it is not lowered properly, if it's, there's an imbalance. So many things could have gone wrong if the animal had attacked the cage. But then it was at that point, all these things seemed a little less worrisome for me than just getting the animal back to safety. Because I knew the longer it was down in the well, there are more chances of it getting, dehydrated or more aggressive. And it would be very difficult for us later on. So it was...
Once you reached the bottom of the well, Dr. Meghna, once you reached the bottom of the well, what happened and how did you feel? Did you instantly spot the leopard when you got down there?
Yes, the moment I was even towards even before they had landed me on the ground, I could see the leopard. And I knew and she was sitting in a perfect position for me to dart. So I knew I had this just one chance, because if I had missed this chance, I knew she would just then, move about, and then it would be very difficult for me to manipulate the gun in that small cage. So I then immediately assessed the anesthesia, how much to be given, everything, loaded the gun, and took that shot. And lucky enough, it was a perfect shot. And within the next 15 minutes, the animal was sedated. Then a local just got down because the animal was too heavy for me alone to be dragged into the
cage.
Cage. So then they helped me in, and after that we were both brought back to the
So correct me if I'm wrong. The cage was dragged up with you and the leopard inside the cage?
Yes.
Okay. So you were in the cage with that leopard?
Yeah, but the leopard was sedated and I made sure it was, completely anesthetized. That's why I took that chance of getting the leopard with me into the cage, and then we got it up. Yes.
Yeah. No, so what happened once you, I'm really trying to put myself in your shoes here, Dr. Meghna, because as the cage was being hoisted back up, you had this leopard with you, and you're a vet, you know what tranquilizer darts can do, and I'm sure you know the effectiveness of them. But was there something in your mind wondering if this animal could somehow wake up, for any reason, maybe the tranquilizer dart was, ineffective or something? Did that go through your mind?
That it was there at the back of my head, but I was making sure, trying very hard to not think a lot about that. I was at that point, it was just okay, the leopard is here. It will just get me back to the top. We'll just assess the, the health condition of the leopard, and then I'm done.
Absolutely. No, so once you brought the animal up, then what happened? In what condition was the animal, and how is that leopard doing now?
So the leopard was luckily... no injuries at all, even though it had fallen from a height, no fractures, and slight dehydration, yes. But other than that, the leopard was quite healthy. So we gave the necessary medication, and then even the reversal, because, just to make sure she just regains her consciousness faster. We did all that, and after that we had the forest department of Mudbidri, they took over, and they decided to release it back into the wild.
You're a vet, Dr. Meghna, and obviously you feel a connection with animals. Your life is your career and your profession is literally about saving the lives of animals. Do you feel a personal connection with each beast? Did you feel some kind of a personal connection with this poor, trapped, terrified little leopard in that well? Because you spent a lot of time saving it.
So I'm going to speak for all veterinarians and not just me. We all feel, even a little bit of connection that is always there for every animal that we, try to save. People may think that we may not have that, compassion, but no, every animal we try 100%, put in all our efforts. And sometimes it's, even though there are risks involved, all of us, put that aside and try our best to save the animals. And in this case also it was the same. Our entire team was like, we have to make sure we get that leopard out as fast as possible. And because we didn't know if she was injured or not. I mean, only later when we checked her, we found out that she was not injured. But at beginning of the rescue, none of us had any idea. So we had to make sure she was okay. So I think anyone in my place also, any veterinarian, I'm sure would have done the same thing that I did.
I'm sure, but you are the person who went down here and now everyone's talking about you. Last few questions, Dr. Meghna. Where is this leopard now? How is it doing right now? Will it be released back into the wild soon? She's already released back into the wild. Yes, that's the information we got from the forest department. Yes. And it's whenever one reads the news about leopards, it's always about a leopard having attacked someone. Recently there was some some injuries that people sustained, and you're the kind of person who knows deep down inside, and so do I, that this is about human encroachment on the habitats of these creatures. It's not the other way around. These leopards have not come into our spaces. We've gone into their spaces, and that's the reason why this is happening. Do you get a lot of calls? Do you get a lot of information about this kind of thing happening? And animals trapped in human habitations needing rescue like this?
Definitely, there are a lot of animals that get into this urban settlement because firstly they come in search of food. Secondly, there's habitat destruction, so they can't go back into the this thing that they used to see as home. Now it's because the forests are so fragmented. Now it's a bit of a question mark for them if there is prey or not. And it's not just leopards. So even snakes, we see a lot of snakes entering the house and all, and it's very sad. So because they just come in search of food and shelter from the sun, because their natural habitat is being lost. But again, it's a moral dilemma, because when a human life is also involved, we need to be very careful about what we do. Yeah. So, I would actually tell that if somebody sees a wildlife, that is in need to be rescued, like it has come into the human settlement, and you are scared about it, don't try to harm the animal. Immediately, if you can report to the forest department or wildlife rescuers, they will make sure, they will ensure your safety also and the safety of the animal, and that's what we all want. And live.
I'm very glad you said that, because I was actually going to ask that question. I wanted you to put out a message here as someone who's in the spotlight right now to people out there, especially young people, because I want to catch Indians young, to educate them as much as possible about animals, and to instill a sense of empathy about animals, because at the end of the day, none of these animals are out to harm us. Usually these attacks happen when we come in their way, when they feel threatened, when they feel vulnerable. That's when the attacks usually happen. But you're in coastal Karnataka near Bengaluru. That's a place where I come from as well, incidentally, Meghna, but that's just a side piece of information. So I know how beautiful it is. I know how green it is. It's full of wonderful beasts and birds. Has this been the most interesting animal encounter you've ever had? I mean, as a vet, I can imagine you've had contact with all manner of critters. Tell us some of the more fun things that you've done.
Honestly, I don't know. I treat each animal as a special on every rescue that we get, even if it's a small myna or a sunbird, or even if it's a leopard. For me, they're all like, an exciting thing to deal with. So I wouldn't say if I have any favorites to pick from, but but they're all interesting, and especially if we have to rehabilitate them. So they take a lot of, a thought process, and it's challenging, but it's really satisfying at the end when you, finally release them back into the wild. Like if a bird we've, found somewhere and hand raise them, enough to, rehabilitate them in such a way that we can release them back into the wild. So when we release them, the sense of happiness that we feel, it's just really amazing. So I don't have a favorite, but every animal that I've dealt with,
I hear you.
this kind of happiness when I've seen them go back to the wild.
I can imagine, and I'm sure that leopard, wherever she is right now, is thanking you deep inside. She was asleep when she was rescued by you, Meghna, but obviously, somewhere she must have seen you while you were descending in that cage like an angel from heaven, quite literally in this sense, and rescuing her, and she woke up to find out that she was, safe and sound outside that well and, on her way back to safety. Final question to you, Dr. Meghna, your quick message to budding veterinarians out there. There may be people who might be considering it. We do know that most people go for, human medical science. Your message to young people out there thinking about a career in this wonderful thing that you do.
So I think each profession has its own ups and downs, but for people who want to do veterinarians, I would really, if you have the compassion and the passion to do it, please go ahead with it. Don't think about, there are risks involved or not, because the moment you realize you've saved an animal, the amount of happiness it gives you, I don't think anything else can. So please, if it is something that you all want to do passionately, just go ahead.
Dr. Meghna Pemaya, it's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers very much value this conversation. I salute you. I salute your courage. I salute the empathy you've shown in rescuing a beautiful creature in this country. Thank you so much for joining me here on India Today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation. We will continue to bring you the best of India here on India Today. That's a wrap on 5 Live. Coming up next, 6 p.m. Prime with Akshita. Another Shraddha-like murder in the national capital. In many ways, even worse. Strangled, chopped into pieces, body stuffed inside a fridge at a dhaba in Delhi. That was the fate of young Nikki Yadav. Akshita brings you the full story next.